Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 3D Design, brought to you by the Corona Public Library's Maker Exchange. My name is Mr. Martin, and today I'm showing you how to design your own battery case. Let's get started. We are in Tinkercad this time around, and I have already renamed my project. So I'm going to start by trying to recreate a standard AA battery. So I'm going to insert a cylinder, and we're going to adjust the dimensions here. It's just about 50.5 millimeters in length, or in height here. And we're going to change it to be 14.5 millimeters in diameter. Now there are tolerances to these measurements, but these should get us by with our case. So once we've created this large cylinder, we need to rotate it on its side and make sure to snap it down to the grid. So one thing to note is the 50.5 millimeters is the total length of the battery. We're still going to have to reduce this just a bit and include the little positive end nub that goes on the top. And that the IEC recommends at least 1 millimeter in length for that. So we're going to change this down by 1. So 49.5. And we're simply going to insert a separate cylinder and attach it. So same with the first, change the dimensions to be 14.5 in diameter. Sorry, this one's actually going to be 5.5 in diameter, since it's the smaller nub. And of course 1 millimeter tall. Now you might have to zoom in or use the keyboard keys to edit this one. And the first thing I would do is simply drag it over. Don't worry too much about positioning it right now. We can always use the alignment tool. We just want to at least get it kind of into place. And before we align it, we're going to need to rotate it. So there we go. We can simply select both now. And Tinkercad is actually very smart, and it'll help us align it. Now we want to align it only along the center axes and the z-axis in this case. If we centered it along the x-axis, then you'd end up with that object in the middle, and we don't want that. So all I'm going to do is use the keyboard keys now to move it on over. Once it's in position, I simply select both and attach. And again, you attach objects to each other by simply selecting both, holding Shift and clicking on them, and then you can group them together. And that's it. Congratulations, you have a 3D modeled battery. Make sure to snap it properly on the work plane, and then we'll move on. So the next step now is to insert the actual case. So we're going to move that aside and insert a box. And for this box, we're going to want to fit, I'm going to model it around 4 AA batteries, since that's, typically packs come in multiples of 4 here. So if we do 56.5 by around 68, that should give us within 2 millimeters in between each battery, as well as some material on each border. And if I make it 9.25 millimeters tall, we're basically inserting half of the battery plus some material on the bottom. So that should be able to fit 4 batteries comfortably within this object. This next step is the fun part. I'm simply going to press Control C and Control V to create 4 copies of the battery. Now you can move these all one by one over to where you want it to be. So I'm just going to do that, slide it on over. Now one thing to note is you can select all of them at once, or you can change each one to a whole. We will want to align this later. We can use the alignment tool on all 4 of them. Here, as you notice, I'm selecting both and simply moving them both over at the same time. But I just want to manually adjust it here so that I can make sure that I still have material within or in between the batteries and not spill over like that last battery is here. So I change the camera to the top view, and I'm simply using the keyboard arrows now to nudge these batteries over. Again, I could align them all, but I just want to make sure that I have a bit more control over where they're going to end up. So here, I notice it's still a little farther away, And perfect. Looks like we have our 4 batteries neatly stacked inside of our box. Now, since they are already changed to the hole shapes, oops, why did that one change back? Oh, looks like you can always hit Control-Z to undo. As I was saying, once you have all 4 selected and correctly changed to the hole, you can simply select all and manually adjust the height. So we want about 2 millimeters of material left on the bottom here. So I'm going to move these up. And once I group, you'll notice that it did indeed cut out from the base shape. Now there is a little bit of a circle here. So I'm going to have to manually adjust that one, change it to a hole, select the base, group it, and there we go. We have our 4 battery cutouts. Now all that's left is the lid. So to create the lid, you might be thinking, well, Mr. Martin, you can simply copy paste this and duplicate it, and then simply, you have your 2 halves and you just squish them together. And there you go, you have your lid. Well, unfortunately not. Given the tolerances of the battery and whatever your 3D printers might have at home, it's not guaranteed that the lid will simply slide on. And because of that, there is possibly some sanding down or some refitting that you might have to do after you print it. So we're going to actually recreate our base here, but without the battery cutouts. So I'm going to change the dimensions to the same as we had before. And then we're just going to set that piece aside and now create the actual lid base. It's almost like an oxymoron there, lid base. But essentially, I want around 3 millimeters here on the borders. So if I add that to the base, we get about the original plus 6, so 74 and 62.5. No. Yeah, 62.5. There we go. And of course, if I add 3 millimeters to the top portion, so I have about 7.25 was the half of the battery. So if I want this to completely cover the other half, we're going to want it to be about 10.25. So once I have those adjusted, I simply move the recreated base. And you'll notice here the alignment tool doesn't actually work because I have them too far from each other. So I'm going to deselect both and move this little shadow over here on top. And now I can use the alignment tool properly. So there we go. The next step is simply to cut it out. Now before I do that, I am just going to make sure that I did get my vertical dimensions correct. So here we did have 9.25 as our total height for this base. So again, we want the lid to cover at least half of the battery, plus around 3 millimeters of material on top. So to do that, we actually need this lid base to be around, what is it, like 11.25. So that should give us enough material to work with. And since we already have the recreated base in the proper dimensions, all we simply have to do now is move it down, and we're going to snap it to the base, or the work plane, sorry. I know I use the word base and lid so much here. So simply drag it down. You'll notice the number on the side will tell you when you are properly snapped to the work plane. It's kind of the vertical offset. And if you group both, you'll notice that after a short while, you have your proper cutout. So now if you were to move this material over, you'll notice that it does completely fit over our base that we created. So it does completely cover it, and it gives us plenty of space for batteries on the inside while leaving a bit of thickness at the top to make the case more durable. I would imagine if you're bringing batteries on the go, you'll want that thickness. You want to be able to throw it in your backpack or your purse or whatever, or just keep it in storage for extended periods of time. And there you have it. As always, friends, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Perhaps you've learned a thing or two. If you did, let us know in the comments. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.